Welcome to TBL Scope. I'm Ryan Glassbeagle. That's Bobby Burak. We're discussing Andrew Marchand's bombshell report in the New York Post that ESPN wants to trade for Al Michaels so that they can pair him potentially with Peyton Manning for Monday Night Football. Bobby, what was your first reaction to this report?
Well, you and I had talked about it. ESPN did want Al Michaels to pair with Tony Romo, but here's the big thing, and here's what I've been saying for over a year now. What ESPN wants and what they're going to get, or realistically get, are not the same thing. ESPN has wanted Peyton Manning for a couple of years right now. He keeps saying no. They wanted Tony Romo. You and I never thought that would happen. They didn't get him. Yes, they want Al Michaels. That's no shock there, but that doesn't mean they're going to get him. I would be surprised if they get Peyton or Al Michaels. And Ryan, here's what really gets me. I keep hearing people say, well, ESPN can move their games on broadcast television on ABC. They can get into the Super Bowl rotation. What does that do? That puts them in the same position that Fox, CBS, and NBC have been offering for years now, are going to continue offering. And even then, if ESPN gets that dream, and they very well could get that, those games are probably still going to be far less appealing than the packages that the other three networks have. I think ESPN is delusional thinking that this Monday Night Football booth is what it used to be or can be. I don't think it's all that appealing of a job. And if you're Al Michaels, why would you want to risk possibly never calling a Super Bowl again, leaving Chris Collinsworth, who he has great chemistry with, arguably the best games of the week at NBC, to games on ESPN, maybe ABC, that probably won't have nearly the amount of attention on them? And what does Al Michaels get out of this? Like, feed me your pitch. If you're ESPN, how could you sell Al Michaels on this? What can they offer that NBC doesn't?
Well, they can offer more money, but I imagine that he already has enough money to live the rest of his life like 13 times and not run out of it. But I don't know. Some of these people are very motivated by money. I don't know whether he has kids or not. That's like never come up in conversation about him. If he does have kids, you'd like to leave them more and your grandkids, et cetera, et cetera. But if he doesn't, then I think that it's like almost been a little bit of sport for him holding off Mike Tirico from replacing him.
Yeah, no question.
I get that why ESPN would want him. He's either the best. I think that Michaels is still the best NFL play-by-play caller alive. He's at the very worst the third best behind Joe Buck and Jim Nantz. It's a matter of personal preference. I'd go Michaels number one still. I can see why NBC would do it because I don't know how long Tirico's deal is, but he went there in, I think, 2016. And at some point, he's going to be coming up and he's not going to want to wait around there forever. And so they want to probably just get him in there and have their guy set for the next 20 years, as long as no tragedy or any type of like personal behavioral issue comes up. But I don't see why Al would want to do it because like I said, I don't think that there's enough money. Like you said, it's going to be a while before he would get to call a Super Bowl again. He's going to have the Super Bowl in the 2022-2023 season that NBC has. The earliest ESPN and ABC would possibly get it is the year after that. But I would imagine even if they do jump into this rotation, they're going to be 3 or 4 years into it so that other networks don't have to wait for their next spot. But maybe they do get the first one because they make a gigantic money splash. I don't know. So at the very least, Al Michaels is like 79 before the first Super Bowl that he could call on ESPN and ABC. And so I don't know off the top of my head why he would want to do it.
Well, let's just talk in best case scenario hypotheticals. Say ESPN is able to get in the rotation. Monday Night Football airs on ABC. This still isn't a top 5 booth job in the industry. I mean, because you look at Fox and CBS, theirs are certainly better because they air a lot of games on Sunday and a good portion of the playoff. I would still put the NBC job ahead of it. I would say the NBA Finals gig is probably better. Is this even top 5? I could probably go on. Is it better than the college football?
Top 5 because I mean, you're not old enough, and I'm not even old enough to remember, but there's a big cachet with Monday Night Football. As much as it has eroded, as they put it on cable, and the NFL has given better games to the networks that remain on broadcast. There was a time where the booth of like Howard Cosell and Don Meredith and Frank Gifford was the gold standard in sports, and the announcers who are able to get in the stratosphere for these jobs remember that time. So I think to them it is still a top 5 job, but I do agree with you that at this moment it remains behind Fox, CBS, and NBC. The other component of this equation is Peyton Manning, who, as you've said and everyone else has said, has already turned them down twice. They'd have to pay him over $20 million a year to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard that that's what they're planning to offer him. Then I brought that, and it was like disputed by somebody else. But they are going to have to pay him that much to get him to do it. And even still, he might say no. He has, for whatever reason, a big fear of failing at it. I guess it just isn't what he wants to do for some reason. And we've heard before that he doesn't want to call games that his brother Eli is playing in. Now Eli's retired, but he also didn't want to call games with Tom Brady. That problem's not going away, at least this season. And if you're Peyton Manning, why don't you just wait a year to see how the broadcast deals shake out, and then they'll probably come try to get you again.
Yeah, that's my thing. And what do we keep on talking about next year? It's the election year. The attention is going to be off of sports. I don't think the timing's right for Peyton Manning. ESPN, like you said, they're probably going to keep on going after him every year unless they get someone that just blows it out of the water. Now let's look at some contingency plans. I don't know, Ryan. My bet right now, if I had to guess, I think Kurt Warner's probably a safe bet. Herbstreit, Fowler could move the booth. I've heard that. You've heard that. What's your gut feeling right now?
If it were me, I would go with Kurt Warner because, as I've said before, I think that he's an A minus. Like, are your parents going to hang an A minus report card up on the refrigerator? Mine probably wouldn't have. I don't think they would have hung up an A either, but they wouldn't be impressed by an A minus. But like, it's at least not bad. And their booth the last 2 years has really been kind of a subject of a lot of laughing and derision in the industry over the last 2 seasons. And so if you sign up Warner, you've got no risk. You've heard, and I've heard, that possibility is Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit. I think that's a risk. Like, they have a good booth for college, but they're not known as NFL entities. And so it does solve the problem of what you do with Joe Tessitore, who I don't think like you want, like if you're ESPN, he's been a pretty good employee for you and you really don't want to humiliate him. And if Fowler and Herbstreit move over to Monday Night Football, then you can easily slide Tessitore into that top college job, and that's a pretty nice job for him for the foreseeable future. But I'm not feeling that as something that is going to just make me feel like Monday Night Football has a big game aura. And then after that, if you start looking at people that they've got, Dan Orlovsky's going to get a look. Louis Riddick could get a look. Joe Thomas may not be like a super household name, but he did a really good job in the booth with Rich Eisen and Nate Burleson on NFL Network last year. And you could see a scenario where he gets a tryout, but I don't know that they'd go with him. I think he's really good. It's weird because they love Super Bowl champions. He's one of the best left tackles ever, but he was just always stuck on a bad team. And so he's not really identified as a winner in football circles. It's very odd, but that's just the way things work.
You brought up Orlovsky. That was a name I heard over the weekend is going to be in the mix for whatever that means. That does not mean he's going to get it. But here's what I say about Orlovsky. I think he would do a good job. I think he's a very talented broadcaster. I think he would be an improvement, no question, in the booth. But here's the problem, Ryan. You and I know Orlovsky from Get Up. We know him from Sports Center, First Take, what he does in the studio.
Because I was a UConn season ticket holder when he played.
All right, so I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But I don't know him for that. But the average guy watching, or the average person watching football on Monday nights, they don't watch Get Up. They might not even know what Get Up means. They're only going to know Orlovsky from his playing career, and they might not even know him from that. So you're really putting an unknown entity into Booth there, even though I think he'd be very good and impressed. I think the initial reaction early on would be, who is this guy?
What odds would you have to bet on them landing Al Michaels and Peyton Manning for it to feel like a good bet for you? I think it would have to be over 10-1.
I wouldn't even take that. I don't, the combination of them happening, I don't see it happening. I'd be shocked. First of all, I don't see Peyton Manning coming. I mean, like, that's the first step in this. Like, Al Michaels isn't going to come to do this Booth with some random former football player. I don't see Peyton Manning coming. If he would, I mean, I don't see what. I mean, they would have to offer him, Ryan, money that he's not worth. And like, I think he's worth a lot in the booth. I always say you're worth what the market's willing to pay you. But in order to get him to do this, you're going to have to pay him. I mean, Romo just got $18 million. I think significantly more than that for him to seriously consider it. You mentioned $20 million. I don't know if he would do it for $20 million.
Yeah, here's the thing with Peyton Manning, though, that makes him worth more than any other announcer on the planet. He is a darling of advertisers nationwide, etc. And he could bring a bunch of sponsors with him onto Monday Night Football and provide incremental revenue in a way that no other person on the planet could.
If if Peyton Manning or Peyton Manning's agent sits down with ESPN and says, I want $10 million or more a year than Tony Romo, what do you say if you're ESPN?
It's really, I think 24 million is the price where if I'm ESPN, I walk away. I don't go above 24, 25. Like, I certainly don't go to 26.
But
so
why
go to 28.
Why stop there? I think if you're going, I mean, if I'm them and I'm willing to pay him 24, 25, I would go up to 10 million. Look, I'm not saying that he's going to ask for 28 million a year. I'm just saying it. I think it's possible that he's going to want a lot more than Romo. First of all, I don't even know if Romo getting $18 million is one thing because he's a proven broadcaster. I mean, he's been the best since he took over. I think Peyton Manning would be a good color commentator. I don't know that, though.
Yeah, imagine if they gave him like a 10-year deal worth over $200 million and then he's bad.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it several times. A player we think is going to be a great broadcaster all of a sudden is not. So I don't think he's nearly as valuable as Romo, despite having a much more legendary career and probably, well, yeah, definitely more well-known and likable. But yeah, that's a big risk for someone that's never done it a day in his life.
Yeah, and then the one other thing is Phillip Rivers is looming out there. He said he wanted to play. Martian mentioned that ESPN would want him. If you do that, you're risking what happened with Fox and Jay Cutler, where some quarterback gets hurt in camp or early in the season, and like the coach is standing around, oh no, what do we do? And you lose him, and that would be a massive disaster because for everything that we've just said, like they don't have really they don't have good plans beyond what like their wildest dreams are.
Yeah, that's why I just keep going back to Warner. Listen, I don't think it's a blockbuster move. I don't think people are going to be like, well, that's the answer. We got our guy, but I think they will have somebody they can at least be comfortable with. And I think after 2 straight years of having a disastrous Booth, you probably want some sort of just a sense of, okay, he's going to be good. He's not going to be great, but we're not taking much risk. I don't know how many more times ESPN can put out just an awful Booth because it's been awful the past 2 years, especially in that past playoff game, that Houston-Buffalo game. That was almost a bigger talk than the game. That was an embarrassing on all levels for ESPN. They can't have that again.
This has been TBL Scope. I'm Ryan Glassfiegel. That's Bobby Burak. This is a special edition. We'll see you in some capacity on Monday.